Good morning, everyone. You know who it is. In case you don't, I'm John C. Morley, serial entrepreneur. It is great to be with you today on Saturday, July 13th, 2024 at 9 a.m. if you're catching us live, or if you're catching us at 9 p.m. or perhaps 3 a.m. or 3 p.m. or maybe 12 noon, 12 midnight. It doesn't really matter what time you decide to join us, whether it's live or it's a replay or it's a podcast. I'm so grateful that you've made the choice to actually make Inspiration of Your Life part of your life. You know, we had a real firework weekend, and no pun intended there, with the whole week actually talking about the fireworks of life. And if you remember, I said yesterday that fireworks are all around us, right? We have them in the sky, pyrotechnics, we have them in relationships. But the challenge happens in life is when we were born, we never got a manual. I know I'm still trying to find mine. I know when I was born, I think they might have left in the delivery room. I've been calling everywhere. I've been putting ads out, social media. Nobody can find my my manual. But so I'm kind of building my own. But no, seriously, we don't get a human manual in life. We learn how to be by the experiences. We learn by mistakes. We learn through challenges, and that helps us to grow and become a better version of ourselves. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have a great topic for this week, this Master Week, and that is what we don't know about our bodies. We're on Series 3, by the way. That is, we're in the third year. We're on show 29. Today, we have an amazing topic. As you know, we have a granular topic that relates into the master topic, and that is unleashing the power of your metabolism with water and minerals. Series 3, Show 29, Episode 1. Hey, guys, don't forget to check out my hat, believemeachieve.com, or scan that QR code so you can catch more of this great information. And by the way, it's all free. You can get it at believemeachieve.com. We even have snippets now, so you can even watch us on TikTok. So you can't say, hey, I don't have 50 minutes. Well, you have 5 minutes, don't you? Sure you do. And once you know that kind of propels you forward to learn more, you're going to sit down and want to watch the whole show. I know you're going to want to watch this whole show. So whether you're watching us as a snippet, definitely come back and watch the full show because you want to get the full value. And I know all of you out there want to have the highest quality of life. We're not talking about some type of luxury item. We're talking about having a higher quality of life. Well, my next guest, I'm really privileged and a pleasure to have with me today. And actually a lot of our guests come from referrals. Dr. Leland Stillman came from us as a referral from another great person who had us on one of his shows, and he was on our show. Dr. Stillman studied biology and environmental health at Connecticut College and received his medical doctorate from the University of Virginia. He then trained in internal medicine at Maine Medical Center. He practiced at as a hospitalist for 3 years following his residency training. He went on to found his own practice just before COVID, and he has a longstanding interest in alternative medicine and now focuses on functional and integrative medicine in his practice. So just to give you a quick, let's say, teaser here. So many of you know I'm very much into health. And many of you know, I think I've shared with you that I've had one cavity. And the reason I had the cavity is because the doctor couldn't see me. And so because he couldn't see me for several months, well, that cavity formed and it was just, so again, that was an issue. But what I did with the other cavity that was forming, and they told me I was needing a root canal, I used alternative medicine because I believed I didn't want to lose another precious tooth in my mouth. So I actually use the stuff called Oral Live. Now, they're not paying me to say anything to them. I don't get a dime for you buying their product, but I'm just letting you know about Oral Live. It's not cheap. It comes in 3 strengths. And the reason I want to tell you about it is it's a product that literally got the infection out of my tooth. I went back to the dentist next month because they were going to schedule me for a root canal. And he goes, we never told you need a root canal. I said, you did. You said I need a root canal. You probably got us confused, or we got you confused with another patient. You don't need any root canal. Really? So I think that's important. I even believe in brushing with natural toothbrush and toothpaste sometimes. That can really help. But alternative health is the whole concept that we don't use medicine. We use our body to heal ourselves. We use the energy around us. Ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, I'd like to please welcome to the Inspirations for Your Life show, Dr. Stillman. Hello, Dr. Stillman. How are you this fine Saturday morning?
I'm well, John. Thank you for having me.
It is a privilege and a pleasure. And we have a very interesting topic. But before I get started with the topic, I have to just ask you, because I'm curious, and so our viewers and listeners know, what got you into the study of medicine?
Well, I was born in New York City, a very hectic, polluted city, and I had a lot of the illnesses that modern American kids have: sinus infections, ear infections, sore throats, colds all the time. And my sister had a sinus surgery because she was in the same position I was. And after the procedure, my mother was looking up the ENT surgeon and said, "This is it. We've solved the problem, right?" And he said, "No, the holes in her sinuses will clog up again and we'll have to go back in and operate." And she refused to settle for this and decided to take us on a really amazing journey through various different kinds of integrative and functional medicine, some good, some bad. And so then my life turned into sifting the good from the bad and finding out what really works to help people look and feel their best, because I was, fascinated by my own case, and then really felt very strong, compelling compassion for those who were suffering. John, you just cut out. I don't know why your mic's not coming through now.
There we are. I love your story there, Dr. Stillman. I know a lot of times in the medical world, there's a professional courtesy, but sometimes that gets lost. We call it bedside manner, I think, quote unquote. You get too wrapped up in the numbers, but I believe if you lose the patient, if you lose that connectivity, it's a problem. I know when I went to get my wisdom teeth taken out many, many years ago, I interviewed 50 doctors via phone. They thought I was nuts. The office, and I answered some questions. And if I didn't feel comfortable, well, they didn't move to level 2. Level 2 was when I would go visit those 4 or 5 doctors. So I visited 5 doctors. First one, it was a no. Second one was a no. And they were telling me how the procedure was going to go. Well, we're going to knock you out. It's going to be this. I said, no, you're not knocking me out. Well, that's how we do it. I said, okay, thank you so much for playing. Unfortunately, you're disqualified, but thank you. Have a great day. Then I went to another one. Well, we do this in a slot. So we're going to get you in. We have 30 minutes. We do about 20 people a day. No. I'm not going to be part of a numbers clinic. So thank you so much. I realize you have a discount. I don't mind paying more money. And plus my insurance is covering this. So I want to feel comfortable. I know it's about making money for the doctor, but I got to feel comfortable too. Let's pretend you were in my seat. What would you think? Well, they didn't know what to say. Finally, I got to the 5th doctor. And the doctor was a little bit ham because I said to him what I didn't want. And he was kind of being funny in the sense they have these braces which hold your mouth open. So I said, I don't want you to use that. So real quickly, he just used it on me. He said, I'm just kidding. He said, I'm not going to use it on. He says, I just said I'd give that to you. He says, I'm definitely not going to do that to you. He says, I can see you're a little apprehensive. He says, this is going to work fine. The day of the I knew he was having a kid. So 2 days before, I said, let me make sure I'm really friendly with him. I sent a basket of fruit. Just make sure he was in good graces with me. It was a couple days before. I said, congratulations, doctor, on your newborn, yada, yada. I said, if it's too stressful for you on Friday, I said, we can do it another time. I don't want to cut it. He said, no. He says, this happens all the time. He says, and a birth is not going to affect my work. I said, oh, okay, no problem. So the day of the surgery comes, he calls me up early in the morning and he goes, John, he says, are you okay? He says, would you rather go play golf today? I said, what do you mean? He says, well, he says, are you apprehensive? I said, I am. He says, well, would you rather take off and just play golf and we'll do this another time? I was like, well, he's like, no, I just want to make sure you're okay. And when I got into the office, he explained everything. He went over everything with me and there were no surprises. I knew what the emergency was going to be. I knew if something happened, what was going to be. And a lot of doctors don't want to share those details. So I think sometimes they don't share them because they're afraid they're going to freak you out. But if a patient asks about them, it's your right to know about them. So I think, getting that relationship is important. So we're talking about something very interesting today, which is the power of metabolism with water and minerals. So the first part of that is, what is the difference, doctor, between functional and integrative medicine? 2 mystic words that a lot of people don't even know what they are or that they even belong together.
Great question. The word integrative, or the term integrative medicine, really arose, probably 50, maybe more years ago, to describe the attempt to bring together different types of medicine that previously sort of didn't play well together. People may not know this, but historically chiropractors did not play well with allopaths. They might say that allopaths didn't play well with chiropractors, allopaths being MDs, medical doctors. Osteopaths and MDs had their own feud. There's been lots of feuding in the history of medicine. Integrative medicine is trying to make peace between everyone and figure out, well, how can we all come to the table and serve patients best? And it really took off, I think, 50, 60 years ago. Now, functional medicine came out of the blue 10, 20 years ago. A couple of docs put together a new paradigm that I have to say isn't really new. It's just they came up with a new term for it. And they were very effective at marketing it from a branding perspective. And so it gained what we call market penetration. So now if you look at the Google search terms, there's something like 100 times or 10 times as many searches for functional medicine than integrative medicine. But ultimately, these, in my opinion, are just sort of different sides of the same coin. It's all about how do we get the best results and outcomes for patients using all of the available healing modalities to us.
So if I understand correctly, doctor, it's really about creating a perception in our mind. It's giving us a comfortability to, I guess, buying into, if we want to say, this type of medicine.
It's branding.
It's brand. Is this the same brand as holistic? Do we term that in the same world?
Holistic, natural,
Okay,
integrative.
because I know the
functional.
holistic. I didn't know if it was the same, but I'm
Yes.
as I told you, I love holistic because I believe that you can heal so much. I know there was many years ago they had said I need to have surgery for something, and I healed it myself. And they said, "Well, you're nuts." I said, "But you
Mm,
can." I said, "Your body has energy." And I just
yes.
believed that I could heal it. Now, it wasn't overnight. I want to tell you that it was not overnight that, well, you're going to have surgery. You're going to be rushed to the hospital. I said, well, if that happens, I said, I'm very religious. I said, I don't think that's going to happen. Number one. Number two, if that happens, it happens. But I just believe in my gut that I can heal this by doing the exercises, by doing the stretches. And I did. And people are like, no, this was a rare case. Like I said, no, everyone can do this. It's that they put in your mind. It's like, parents put in their mind something like, well, you're never going to make any money. Well, of course, if you tell your kid you're never going to make any money, of course they're not going to make any money. Well, you're always going to be sick. Well, of course they're going to be sick. Or you're never going to pass. Of course they're not going to pass. I mean, why don't we change what we're putting in? I think we're programming people's minds, but we could spend all day on that. So the next thing I think that's a pretty big buzzword in this world is metabolism. We know it has to do with digesting our food, but let's get a little deeper, doctor. What does metabolism really mean in English terms?
Well, I'm glad you asked me for the term in English because I'm sure I can't pronounce it in the original or define it in the original Greek. But when I think of metabolism from a practical standpoint in plain English, it's all about the net or the outcomes of all the different biochemical reactions that are going on in your body. And I should also mention that technically there's biophysical, like biophotonic reactions going on in your body that aren't just about chemicals, things like light, which we'll talk about in a minute. And so it's really the sum total of all of these reactions going on in your body that ultimately determine your health, your wellness, and your disease, and really your life. So that's how I would define metabolism.
So our body is more than just a physical body. A lot of people would argue the fact that we're not in just a
Yes.
skin suit. Our body is not 90% of us. It's a covering. It's the shell over the motor. It's the cover of something. But there's a lot more under the hood than we see outside in the car. There's a
Yes.
lot more going on
So
than we can
much.
see. So when we think about our body, I know one thing that I love quite a bit. We were doing work. My IT company was doing work for a doctor's office many, many years ago. And it was about 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. And my guys were there. And I had been on this kick to stop soda, but I was still on a juice kick. So I'm like, where am I going to get juice? It's 1 o'clock in the morning. Like, what am I going to get? So I said, we can order pizza, but where am I going to get juice? It's 1 a.m. in the morning. They said, well, we can get Snapple, Gatorade. I said, well, they don't have any. The pizza place we're at, they had no juices left. They had no Gatorades. They had no nothing. I mean, what kind of pizza place has no beverage? They said, well, it was the end of their week and their delivery never came. I said, well, now what am I going to do? I've got 2 pizzas coming. I got guys that are hungry. We got to finish this job. And I said, well, he goes, boss, there's some water over here. I said, yeah, I don't know about water, but he says, that's all we got. I said, well, I guess it's all we got. Let's get a pitcher. Let's pour it. So I pour the water out. And everybody's drinking and not really saying much. And I drink and I'm like, what are we drinking? Just water from the cooler, boss. I said, yeah, but this isn't water. Like, this tastes like really heavenly. He said, it's just water from the cooler. I said, no, this is not regular water. My water home does not taste like this. So I talked to the office manager the next day. I said to Mike, I said, what's in that water? Like, what is it? Oh, that's just RO. R what? Reverse osmosis. What the heck's
Hmm.
that? Oh, it's filtered like 6, 7 times. So now I'm hooked on this concept. I
Yes.
then spend money to put it in my office. I put it in my home. In fact, just recently I pulled out a system that was tank, and you get a lot of bacteria from tanks, and just put a tankless system. But my point is that that water tasted really good, and my life quality changed quite a bit from drinking that water. So give us some insight to why is that water so important, and what are really the keys of hydration? What is that really?
What a great question, and what a great anecdote. We hear that all the time from people who don't realize how important their water is. So, what are the keys of hydration? So, number one, we have to. I had there's an old saying in integrative medicine. Jonathan Wright came up with this. He said, when in doubt, copy nature. By which he really meant if you copy nature, you can't go too far astray. And I always come back to that when I'm talking about natural integrative and functional medicine because it holds true. So in nature, water, and let's be really clear here, there's lots of water out there in nature. Most of it's not potable. You can't go down to the Gulf of Mexico, down the street from me, and drink the water. I wouldn't go into the Everglades and just drink the water. So humans have always looked for the highest quality water. And where do they go? They go to the springs up in the mountains, or they drill very deep wells. And what do you find in common between the most highly prized types of water for people? They're rich in minerals and they're pure. They come out of the ground and they've been filtered by just incredible amounts of, just the Earth's strata filtering out every potential pollutant. So they're pure and they have lots of minerals dissolved in them. In studies, we've seen that the higher the magnesium content of your water, the lower your risk of death. There's not a lot of data on that, but that's the best data that we have. And so when I'm looking for hydration, I want people to start with spring water. RO water is great because it removes a lot of the toxins and impurities that we find in modern municipal water. Sadly, our municipal water is a disaster. And that's simply because for politicians, what matters is making sure no one dies of a cryptosporidium outbreak and no one gets lead poisoning, right? Because those politicians don't get reelected. But so long as the water in your city or your town or your county or your state is not killing anyone acutely, the politicians just kind of let it be as mediocre as they can get away with. So that's why our municipal water is not very good. And that's why so many people notice when they go to RO or spring water that they feel so much better. Now, yeah.
When I got my RO system, I said, I'm going to test this. I bought one of these little TDS testers with it, and I
Yes.
tested my spring water, my bottled water, and they measured total dissolvable solids. Well, I decided this past Christmas that I was going to buy my parents, because they have one of these ice makers that has the water. I said, guys, that's really not great water for you to drink from it. The ice is okay, but not to drink it. So I got on this system. They didn't really know what it was. Now they use it every day. But my point is that it measures on this faucet. It literally tells me the TDS readout, my new one. So my water to be 0 is not good. Mine is about 4 to 6, which is very healthy. My parents is about 50 in Southwest Florida. And the thing I think that's really cool is that the government standard is 150 for safety.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. But what's interesting about that is that it's not just a matter of the total dissolved solids. For people who don't necessarily know what TDS or total dissolved solids means, is it's just what it says, total dissolved solids. So it's all kinds of things. It's iron, it's sulfur, it's magnesium, it's trace elements like manganese, copper, selenium, chromium, you name it. The problem isn't necessarily the number of total dissolved solids, it's the quality, right? And so when you look at the total dissolved solids in something like a high quality spring water, they're generally speaking between about 150 and 200 or 300. And it's all minerals, they're really nutritious minerals that our bodies actually need. When you look at municipal tap water, it tends to be lots of chemicals and minerals that the body necessarily doesn't need, and are even in some cases linked to premature death and disease.
I've found that, since using the water, you're supposed to have fiber and all these great things.
Mhm.
But I found that we're drinking RO. I've been on RO now for, I'm going to say, over 8 years. And I've been on water for 35 years, just plain water. But I've been on RO for that long. And what I find is that it not only helps the body, because our body's made up a lot of water, right? I find that it helps things with digestion. It helps with waste elimination. It really helps. But a lot of people that aren't used to drinking a lot of water, having water, it can be a nuisance using the restroom, and your body has to acclimate. And I think this is why they don't like to have water, because they don't. You can't just do it for one day. But with that topic in mind, I want to ask you. So, what are some of the essential elements of the body? I mean, obviously water, but what are some other essential elements that we need to have in our body to be healthy?
I love this question because these elements are so underappreciated, but ultimately the composition of your body in terms of its elements and minerals is so vital to optimal health. Truthfully, most of the periodic table of elements goes into making life. I mean, everything from lithium at the top left corner of the periodic table down to iodine in the bottom right. So there's a lot. And I'm going to break them down into a couple of big categories so that it isn't, too overwhelming or pedantic. There's calcium, magnesium, sodium, and potassium. These are the first four macro minerals that we need the most of. You need gram quantities of these. And most people have no idea that they are wildly off in their consumption and metabolism of these minerals. And it's a huge part of why they're not healthy or well or achieving their health and wellness goals. The rest of the minerals we call trace elements. And I want to explain why. The macro minerals, you would get milligram or at least hundreds of milligrams or gram quantities to be healthy. If you're under 200-300 milligrams of magnesium a day, that's a big red flag for me as your doctor. If you're under, say, 200-400 milligrams of calcium, that's a huge problem. We may even want someone to be getting a gram of calcium a day. But when you get into things like selenium, chromium, iodine, microgram quantities, so 1,000th of the amount of the macro minerals become relevant. So you can make a huge difference in someone's life with just 200 micrograms of selenium. That's 0.2 milligrams. These are tiny, tiny quantities. I mean, these are amounts in your total body that could fit on the end of your pinky finger, but think of them as the spark plugs of life. It doesn't matter how big your engine is. It doesn't matter how big or powerful or strong the engine is. It doesn't matter how big the chassis is of the car or whatever. It doesn't matter any of the things, the tires, the suspension, the transmission, if there's no spark plug. And that's why, particularly when you find people who are very deficient in minerals, when you give them back those minerals, they light up. And that's how we, in my medical practice, we will routinely see people go from very tired, fatigued all the time up to bursting with energy and being able to get back out and into their lives the way that they wanted to in just a matter of months, because we fix those mineral systems that are offline.
Absolutely fascinating. Another thing I think that comes up a lot is sunlight, right? Some
Yes.
people say we shouldn't have sunlight because it's vitamin D, but they say you can't have too much because it can cause melanoma and cancer. So there's a
Right.
balance with everything, right? So explain to us about what we need to know about sunlight, because I understand sunlight is good for our body as well.
So there's a couple big flies in the ointment of the idea that we should avoid the sun for fear of skin cancer. The first of these comes from studies on electrical line workers. So if you look at electrical line workers, they're the best population or one of the best populations to study skin cancer in. Why? They're unionized, so you can keep track of them. They live and work, well, they work outside all of the time. There are no indoor electrical line workers. There's indoor electrical workers, but no indoor electrical line workers. So they're outside all the time. And what they thought when they looked at electrical line workers and their risk of melanoma, and just so people know, in round numbers, melanoma kills about 7,000 people a year. It afflicts many more, but they get cut out early so people don't die. The rest of skin cancers kill about 5,000 people. So all told, skin cancer deaths in the United States, last I checked a couple years ago, 12,000 people. If electrical line workers, or if the sun causes skin cancer, then you would expect electrical line workers to have very high rates of melanoma and skin cancer, but you don't see that. In fact, their numbers are the same or better than modern indoor office workers. Now, how does that make sense? I like to say that if the sun causes skin cancer, then spoons make people fat. It does not make sense that the sun is responsible for the rise in skin cancer. Skin cancers, particularly melanoma, are doubling every couple of decades in occurrence. And they're happening at earlier and earlier ages. This isn't explained by more sun. Why? In the last 100 years, we've gone from being an outdoor agrarian society where everyone was bathed in natural light pretty much all the time, to one where almost no one gets any full spectrum natural light except 1, 2, 3% of the day. So that data alone really is a huge fly in the ointment of this idea that we need to stay away from the sun because it causes skin cancer. It's not that simple. It's about diet, lifestyle, genetics. It's a multifactorial disease, as we would say. The other thing that's very important for people to know is that the more sun exposure you get, the lower your risk of death. Now, I don't know about you, but I am most concerned with lowering my risk of death. And that's a big litmus test for me as far as, do I think something matters? Like, if you can't demonstrate for me that a lifestyle change, a habit, a food, a choice, or medical procedure, a drug, if it doesn't reduce your risk of death, why do I care about that treatment, lifestyle choice, dietary change, drug, etc., right? So when I look at the sun and its effects on mortality, it reduces your risk of death. That means it's got to have huge benefits to our bodies overall. And this is borne out in the literature. We see that the sun has positive effects on everything from blood pressure to blood sugar to mentation to sleep. We routinely will tell patients, get out in the sun, get some more sun in your eye, on your skin, which is where it's really used by the body to fuel life. They'll see pounds come off. They'll see their sleep improve. They'll see their memory come back or become better. They'll see their mood stabilize and become more positive. I mean, the improvements people see with getting more light in their life, in their eye and on their skin, are profound. And I'm not saying, go out and get a sunburn. You obviously don't want to get sunburned, but you do want to get a healthy amount of sunlight. And sadly, the academic dermatologists who should be studying this haven't actually answered the question of how much sunlight do we need to be optimally healthy. All they've established is that, and this is from a study called the Melanoma in Southern Sweden trial, if anyone wants to look it up, or if you want to link to it, maybe in the show notes. What they found is that your risk of death from all causes is the same if you are an indoor person who doesn't smoke, as if you are an outdoor person, you spend the most time outside, of anyone in society, and you smoke 2 packs a day. So staying indoors, living indoors, is the same risk factor for death as smoking 2 packs a day. That's insane. And people don't know this. They just hear, well, I need to wear sunscreen and I need to stay indoors because I'm worried about skin cancer. Well, there's only 12,000 people die a year from skin cancer. And yes, many more are afflicted by it. But if you look at the killers in terms of cancer, there's several 100,000 people dying of cancer every year in the United States. Guess what all of those other cancers that are by far the greater killers than skin cancer are? They're solid organ tumors of our vital organs. They're blood cancers, the lymphomas. And these things come out of nowhere and kill people before you even see them. Whereas skin cancer, you can get to the dermatologist, you can get it cut out, you can get a definitive diagnosis, and you can get it, really nip it in the bud, so to speak. And this is why I don't think that the data on skin cancer makes any sense in light of the rest of your health, right? As far as the recommendations being made to the general public by dermatologists.
Very fascinating. We still have a lot more to cover here, but we're talking about light, and just real briefly, doctor, how is it that light therapy aids in, let's start for weight loss, because everybody, we're talking about weight loss before. How does light therapy aid in weight loss?
So about 50, 60 years ago, scientists started to look at how the cell actually makes energy. A scientist named Gilbert Ling looked at the numbers and he said, the model we have for how cells make energy doesn't make any sense. If all cells are doing is burning carbohydrates, fats, and proteins for fuel, which is the conventional model, if that's how they create energy, then the math doesn't work. We can't possibly do everything the cell is doing. There has to be another way that the cell makes energy. And indeed, there is another way that the cell makes energy. And this is everyone in modern medicine and science, generally speaking, is still taught this 60, 70-year-old dinosaur model of energy generation of fats, carbs, and proteins get burned in the mitochondria. And that's how we make ATP, and that's how we make energy. In fact, what happens is from the combustion of those substrates, light is released, and that light structures water in your cell. That structured water then can do work because it creates essentially a battery. And this is some mind-bendingly difficult physics to understand. I've read very deeply into it. It's very hard to really explain quickly and simply. But at the end of the day, the simple fact of the matter is that certain frequencies of light help the cell to make energy. And that's all you need to know. You can leave the rest of it for the biophysicists and the doctors like me to argue about. What that means is that red and infrared light, which is what we're talking about when we say light therapy in most cases, can help your cell to make more energy and actually burn fats and carbohydrates and proteins more efficiently. So that's how light therapy aids in weight loss.
We had a question that just came in through somebody watching us on LinkedIn. Probably we'll get to the next piece that we're going to talk about, but their question was they use these skin masks that do, I
Yes.
guess, okay.
Yes,
And they said they come with all these different things. They had a red one, I think the lady
they
said,
do.
and they also had the red and they had the green and the blue. And now they just bought one that was even more money. It has like 10 or 12. They want to know, is that really any good? Is that garbage? Should they be using? Because it's like there's so many different colors for different things. One gets rid of infections and like they're like, is there really medical truth to that, or is that just a marketing gimmick? Because the one that they just bought was over $500 and the original one was only $190. So there's just a quick question for this lady. Should she be doing these different lights? She mostly does red, she said, and she does green. What do you recommend?
So the biggest mistake most people are making in our modern world is that they're underestimating the importance of getting sunlight in their life. We start people off by having them go outside, have their coffee in a brightly lit area, maybe take a 10-minute walk a couple times a day, at least 3 if we can get them to. And the reason for that is just that sunlight contains all the wavelengths and frequencies of light that you need in order to be optimally healthy. And it contains them in the ratios that your body really, really needs. Now, this gets challenging when you've got a skin type that's adapted for one latitude and another latitude. My fair-skinned redheads and people with freckles and really, really, it's called Fitzpatrick type 1 skin. Those folks really need to be careful because they, as I sort of joke, they go outside in Florida on a sunny day and they burst into flames. So those people have to be careful with the sun, but the early morning sun and the late afternoon or evening sun are usually something they can tolerate as much of as they need. Now, beyond that, you can augment the amount of light that you're getting in the body with various different products. We have a ton of products. Actually, John, I'll share with you that we have a light therapy course that's totally free. Your listeners can join. We have a Q&A every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. We'd love to teach your people about light and anything else they want to learn related to light. And again, it's a light therapy course. We can link to that. And to your question, is it good? It is good. It has value. The question is, how are we using it? What's the greater context? And I'd really have to learn more about, what unique issues you're dealing with, but they do have value. And I have represented and recommended many of those products in the past, which we walk people through in the light course, by the way.
Fascinating. And we have some more people chiming in here, which is great. I guess some people are waking up. That's why we do the show all different times. You guys ask me, are we at night, we in the morning? Well, we're all different times. I just tell you that we're going to be on sometime during the day because we hit different people all the time. And you can always watch the podcast and the shorts and stuff like that. So speaking about our health, a big part of our health, and not a joke here, people think the brain runs the body. But really, our heart has more connections to our brain than our brain does to our heart. So I like to say our heart is the chief financial and CEO of the body. The heart really tells the brain what to do. So because that's true, how does light therapy better help our heart health?
What a terrific question. So I have to mention my friend Tom Cowan's book, Human Heart, Cosmic Heart, which I think is the best book I've ever read about heart health. Go pick it up. Tom Cowan, Cowan, Human Heart, Cosmic Heart. The most compelling piece of information he shared with me in that book is that people who have heart transplants will often see profound changes in their personality, such that their taste in music, food, who they like to spend time with, what they like to do as hobbies can change because of a heart transplant. And it is always correlated or corresponding to something to do with the person's heart that they've received. So if, like, for example, you receive the heart of a piano concerto musician, you might suddenly develop a love of piano concertos. Sounds crazy, but is absolutely true, validated by psychologists who've worked in heart transplant units. So how does light, and what does that have to do with light, really? Light programs water. And so all of our memories, all of our beliefs, all of our feelings really ultimately come back to signals that our bodies received and internalized and been programmed with. And fundamentally, this comes back to light. And this is why so many people will, I mean, they unconsciously use these sorts of terms like, suddenly the lights came on, or suddenly I had a flash of insight, or suddenly, the clouds parted and the angels sang. And people don't realize this, but light is fundamentally what's really driving uh, our whole physiology. And people don't even know it. And it's totally clear in the medical literature when you bother to read it, which of course most people have not. Directly, how can light therapy help with heart health? If you get more natural light, particularly the red and infrared frequencies, you'll see that people's risk of death goes down. Their risk of heart disease and all kinds of other illnesses go down. Why is this? It's because of this fundamental effect on these frequencies of light on our cells and their ability to make energy. That's part of why, for example, some of the best literature we have on longevity is actually in sauna. So the more sauna people do up to a certain point, the healthier they are and the lower their risk of things like heart attacks and strokes and so on and so forth. This is the effect of light through the sauna coming into the body and increasing its ability to make energy.
Fascinating. So, being in the sauna, you're actually getting frequencies, even though there's light, like we have, spectrums for seeing, we have spectrums for hearing. There are
Yes,
frequencies in our body for everything, is what I'm hearing. And
that's
I
right.
resonate with what you're saying because a while back, I actually was reading something, and I learned about the story of two stories. One was a heart transplant by, I think it was a teenager, and one person had died, obviously, and they had got the person's heart. And so after the surgery, uh, they said to the kid, "How you feeling?" He says, "I'm feeling fine, but I'm feeling really hungry." So, "Well, that's good. We'll get you something to eat." He said, "Do you want normally what they would eat, like a sandwich?" Is like, "No, no, I have this real yearning for Kentucky Fried Chicken." And he's
Yes.
like, "Excuse me? Yeah, mom, I want some Kentucky Fried Chicken." "But you don't eat fried chicken." "I know, but I just have this." So the next day, she talked to the woman, the mother of the one that had passed, and said, "How is your son?" "Oh, thank you so much. We really appreciate the donating, all the stuff." And she's like, "But something strange." She's like, "What?" "Yes. Um, did he like Kentucky Fried Chicken?" "Oh, yeah, that's all he would eat." Because my son's like craving every month. Yeah, that's all he would eat was Kentucky Fried Chicken. And another quick story was there was a person that was actually killed, murdered. And unfortunately, she was murdered and no one could do anything, right? Because she was murdered and they
Hmm.
couldn't solve it for years and years. Well, she was
Yeah.
part of a heart donor program. And this other girl, this one was a girl, around the same age or so, a year or two ahead or behind, went to the hospital, had the heart transplant surgery, and she kept having these really bad dreams every night that somebody was going to kill her.
Hmm.
And she was really fearful. They brought her to a doctor. They finally had somebody come in. They did sketches. And what the dream was about kept coming was for her to come through and give the evidence so that they could get it. And now they found where the body was and they were able to go after the guy and arrest him and charge him. All because of the heart. So I thought that was just like so on with, what you were saying, that you can't make this up. I mean, when I
It's
heard those 2
incredible.
stories,
These stories are so many of them. It's unbelievable.
that is amazing. So we definitely, if you don't have your health, you don't have anything. What they say, if you don't
Hmm.
have your health, you don't have your wealth.
Hmm.
So talking more about this, we're going to go into now a very interesting part. What are the benefits of combining metabolism with water, minerals, and light? More on what our head topic of the show is today.
So really, when it comes down to it, the things that people need most, that I see them benefiting most from in our modern world as a physician, is if we fix their water and we fix their mineral status and we get them in the right light environment, or we introduce the right light therapies, their metabolism can take off. It's trying to take off. It just doesn't have what it needs. And this shouldn't really surprise anyone. To take this back to an earlier comment I made at the beginning of the podcast, or recording, or whatever we call this, the show, I said that you have to copy nature, and you can't then go too far astray. When we look at what nature for us looks like, let's say that you're outside all the time, you're getting natural spring water, and you're eating 100% wild, organic, foraged, fished, hunted food, right? Very mineral dense and a wide range of foods. You look at what the modern person is doing, they're living indoors out of natural light. They're drinking tap water that looks nothing like natural spring water or well water in most cases. And they're eating processed food, the minerals from which have been stripped, or they've been adulterated or altered. And so what they end up with is a life that's just a shadow of what it could be. They don't have energy, their mood is low, or they're struggling with, a highly labile mood. They're anxious, they gain weight, they don't know why. They go to the gym to try and burn it off, but they're trying to burn off all of those calories in an engine that doesn't have any spark plugs, and in the end doesn't have the raw materials and the light it needs in order to really function optimally. So when we introduce all those things back into someone's life, the results are profound. And that's why it's pretty much 80% of what I would say we do at my medical practice now.
It's fascinating how, our thoughts become things, which a lot of people think we're crazy, but thoughts
It's true.
become things,
It's true.
wherever we think those thoughts are, and wherever the thoughts go, that's where the energy flows. And I use the analogy of people, like, are there a lot of cars in the world? And I ask them what color car you have. And when I tell them my color and their color, like, oh no, there's more of my color. Well, we're both not wrong. We're both not right. It's just our perception of how many cars we're seeing, because our RAS is focusing, our reticular system is focusing on that. Really, really fascinating. And I have an interesting question. When we think about medical, we hinted on in the beginning, what is it that the medical world basically, what don't they want you to know about the integrative medicine that they're trying to hide from us?
It's a great question, but it's difficult to answer. The reason why is that the they is very vague. If I had to boil it down, let's just start. Who's making a killing, pun intended, on our healthcare crisis as a country? It's the pharmaceutical industry, it's the insurance industry, and it's the hospital systems. It's not really the doctors, certainly not the other hospital staff. So it's really these big corporations. And what is their profit model? Well, the pharmaceutical industry makes its money in what we call a rent-seeking economic system. They need you to show up at the pharmacy every month or every couple of months or every quarter for a refill on your prescriptions. And so they make their money basically enabling you to live your life 1 quarter, 1 month at a time, 1 pill at a time, right? And they want those pills to stack up. So the healthier you are, the less money they make, because the less of their product you need, right? So they want to make sure that everything that's in the public consciousness about how to be healthy fits their model, which is essentially you are doomed to fall apart and require lots of drugs and lots of surgeries as you get older. And that's normal and okay. And you should save up lots of money and be prepared to spend lots of money on all of these different things, which is frankly a lie, because people get healthy and old in a very peaceful, medically uncomplicated way, so long as they just follow some basic ground rules and honor their fundamental biology. Now, how does the insurance company make a lot of money? Because people might think, well, they probably want to minimize their costs, because if they minimize their costs, then they can take home more of the premium, right? Wrong. The bigger the premium, they're making their money on a percentage of what you pay in. So the insurance company wants your premium to be as big as possible. And in order to justify the big premium, they need healthcare expenses to actually be very, very high. The only way they've been able to do this is that they don't allow anyone to compete with them. That's why if you go out and you get a quote for your auto insurance, You can get 30, 40 quotes online in 10 minutes. You want to get a health insurance quote? Good luck. You might get 3, 4, 5. They're all going to be overpriced. There's no competition in the marketplace. So those are the actors that want to make sure that people don't know that if they just focus on a healthy diet and a healthy lifestyle, and they use a lot of natural and integrative medicine that's simple, effective, affordable, widely available, they can really cut their medical expenses to practically nothing. Because if everyone were to do that, then our something like 4.4 trillion in 2022 medical industry would become a, fraction of what it is.
So what I'm hearing you say, doctor, is it's all basically like a brainwashing.
Yes,
They're conditioning people to think. I know when I was even younger, I said to myself, I said, I'm not taking medicine. I know you have to take a penicillin or you take something if there's a, but I always
sure.
believe that as I get older, I said, I don't need to take medicine anymore. I'm going to heal this my own way. And the doctors think I'm nuts. They're like, you're crackpot. You're off your rocker. Like, we don't even want to see you because like you're in your own world. Like you think you can fix yourself. I said, but I can. And
Yeah,
they're
I
like,
know.
"Yeah, yeah, you're one of these wacky people. We don't want the rest of the world to
Yeah.
believe what you believe because yeah, but
So
I've."
the irony of this is that the great physicians of history have all said the same thing. Hippocrates, who was the founder of Western medicine in Greece, he said the
Yeah.
greatest medicine of all is teaching people how not to need it. William
Yes,
Osler,
I
who
love
founded
that.
Johns Hopkins, he said the patient who takes medicine must recover twice, once from the disease and once from the medicine. He said one of the first duties of the physician is to teach the masses not to take medicine.
I love it.
These people
I
are
I
lionized
I
in the
I
history of medicine, and yet medical doctors don't hear anything about this whole paradigm.
I love that. Just a quick into to that. I had broke my tib and fib. We're not going the whole story, but I did recovered without surgery. They wanted to drug me and put me to surgery. They gave me these drugs, and they kept coming back to me. She says to me, she says, "Are you okay?" I said, "I'm fine." I said, "Quit trying to drug me." She says, "You should be out already." I said, "Yes, a normal person would already be out." I said, "I'm
Mhm.
blocking your medicine." She said, "Well, we have to double the dose." I said, "No, I don't want any more." She said, "You should have been
Wow,
out already." So your mind can affect a drug. And
I know.
she's like, so then they thought I was on drugs. So they
Mhm,
were trying to test me for drugs. And I said,
mhm.
you do that, I'm going to have you on a legal issue because I never gave you permission to test me for drugs. They're like, what's your drug of preference for relaxation? I said, I don't take drugs. I don't smoke. They
I
said,
would
you
have said
have to be.
coffee.
There's no way you could block all that pain. I said, I did. They said, you have to be taking some kind of drug. So
Yeah.
we have time for one more question. I mean, we could spend all day on this, but we only have a limited amount of time, unfortunately. And that last question is, what are some other holistic strategies, some quick points that you can share with our viewers, our listeners, so they can start experiencing better health, or I like to say, experience a higher quality of life?
So we start everyone that we work with five, we call them the five fundamentals. So the first fundamental is take 3 10-minute walks outside every day, non-negotiable, no matter what you're doing. The second is drink high quality water. We usually recommend spring water, but because you love RO, I'll throw it in there because we do have people switch to RO. The third is eat a protein at every meal. The fourth is get the lights off at night and wind down so you can get really high quality sleep. And the fifth is have connection and community, which of course I'm sure your listeners will appreciate the fact that you're creating a lot of that for them. We have coaching programs where people can join Q&As with us every week or a couple times a month, depending on which plan they're on, so that they can ask us questions about exactly this. Because what we found is that while it's all well and good to give people these big kind of one size fits all strategies, most people want something tailored. They want some really personalized insight. So that's how we do that. We do a lot of group coaching, and people get a huge value out of that. So people can find out more about that at stillmanwellness.com.
That is absolutely fascinating, doctor. I mean, I always knew that there was more to our body than just the medicine, and that it's not about these pharmaceutical nonsense stories. Because I believe that once they get you on something, because I know they want to put me on this and put me on that, and I said, I don't want it. Well, we're just gonna. I said, no, no, you're not going to put me on it for any limited time Because see, what happens is your body then builds up to it, and your body then wants it like a drug, like you get addicted to it. I get if it's a short term, it's an antibiotic, I get that. But I don't want something, and then your body gets adjusted to it, and then you can't get off of it. That's
I
what
know.
happens, and it causes big problems for us, obviously, in the medical industry. So I
Absolutely.
think we've touched a lot of topics here today. But if you had to give my viewers and listeners maybe just 2 or 3 takeaways, what would you say they are today, doctor?
2 or 3 takeaways.
Mhm.
Well, number 1, the vilification of the sun is not fair. It really doesn't deserve the bad reputation that it's I guess been given by the dermatologists. All due respect to them. I would say that water really, for us, it's non-negotiable. If someone won't get off tap water, we are not sure what kind of progress they're going to make. They may make great progress. We hope for the best, but it's one of those sort of non-negotiables for us in the medical practice and in my coaching work. And the last would be people have got to be mindful of their minerals. We do a lot. I mean, we test everyone's minerals in their hair in my medical practice pretty much every quarter, unless they feel like taking a break from the supplements we use to correct them. And the reason why is just the profound results we've seen people achieve with what we call mineral balancing, which is where we balance the minerals based on the data that we find in the hair. And you would be shocked. I mean, we find people's hair is loaded with aluminum, mercury, lead. They've got high levels of things like copper. And when we get all of that out and we get the minerals balanced, people feel and function at their best. So those are my 3 tips. And if people want to find out more, join our newsletter, stillmanwellness.com. We do free webinars every week, and you'll get a lot out of them, which we haven't had time to touch on today.
Yeah, we'll have to probably have you come back and talk about some more topics. There is just so much to talk about. Like I said, we could spend hours. We could probably do 10 podcasts on it. But we'll definitely have you come back, and we'll find some other topics that are hot in the news and try to give you some truth, just like we did with COVID. If you remember back then, I gave you all the truth about COVID. I told you what the CDC wasn't telling you. That's why sometimes Google does block our content, but that's okay.
Yes.
Being a media producer for many years and a member of International Press, I want to give you guys the truth and give you the choices and let you make the decisions based on the facts that I show you, not on the blown up stories. So again, I do want to thank you very much for being on the show, Dr. Stillman. It was really a privilege, pleasure, and honor to have you with us and to learn so much from you that you were able to share with me and many of my viewers today. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
You're welcome. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was Dr. Stillman. If you have not had the chance to watch this, go back and watch it. If you don't have the whole 50 some minutes, well, why not pop in our podcast while you're driving? Or better yet, why don't you just listen to some of these snippets, which come out usually about a week later? We've started doing that now for a couple of weeks. We actually take very strategic segments of the show to give you some key points. Of course, you can check out more of Dr. Stillman's information. We'll have the information in the show notes. Do scan the QR code, or you can go to believemeachieve.com. Like Dr. Stillman was saying, we program our water and we program our life with belief. So when somebody says you can't do something, like Mr. Henry Ford said, you're right. And when somebody says you can do something, you're also right. So I'd rather be more right. So let's start believing in ourselves and let's start creating miracles that we know we can do. Have yourself a great rest of your day. We'll be back tomorrow with another great episode. In the meantime, check out believemeachieve.com, and I'll see you guys on another episode real soon. But remember, if you don't have your health, you don't have your wealth. Have a good one, everyone.